Luffy's already powerful with just one devil fruit, but what if he gained the powers of everyone he defeated? Imagine Luffy with Crocodile's sand, Enel's lightning, and Kaido's dragon form. How unstoppable would he become? Luffy is normal, eats the gum gum fruit as a child, and everything proceeds the same. The time eventually comes, and Luffy grows up, just like in the regular storyline, and for the first time he meets Buggy the Clown. In Orange Town, he confronts a man with a devil fruit that fits perfectly with his chaotic nature. We all know that Buggy, along with his Chop Chop fruit, can split his body into parts and use his body parts to attack his foes. This battle is a circus, with Buggy's pieces floating in space and Luffy's rubber body trying to reach him in the most unique acrobatic ways. But this time, the fight ends differently. Luffy, after getting super annoyed by the clown, lands a powerful blow, sending Buggy crashing into the ground. Suddenly, Luffy sees a vision of a fruit talking to him, asking him to consume it. He goes towards Buggy, touches him, and to his surprise, the Chop Chop fruit comes out of his mouth in the form of a purple orb with patterns. Now, we all know how Luffy hates to think, so he simply eats the orb. Suddenly, powers flood through his veins, and Luffy's body detaches with a strange sensation. The rest of Buggy's crew comes to rescue him, but Luffy, with all his limbs detached, uses the Gomu Gomu fruit to kick and punch them away, sending all of them into the ocean. Nami and Zoro look at Luffy in stunned silence. But things take a massive turn when the crew continues to Syrup Village, where they encounter Captain Kuro. This guy has no devil fruit, but he can release insane attacks with unreal speed and cat-like claws. At first, he is literally destroying Zoro, and even though he is a great swordsman, he just can't continue fighting him with scratches all over his body. In the nick of time, Luffy saves his friend, but then Kuro attacks Luffy, only to find out that Luffy had split his body parts into different pieces. Kuro is not confused about where to attack, so he goes for Luffy's head. However, both of Luffy's arms pull him away, halting his mobility, and then Luffy punishes him for hours, laughing and gagging by kicking Kuro's face for hours. From there, the crew easily defeats Don Krieg and the Armada Pirates without much trouble, which is contrary to what we have seen in the series. But then, their biggest challenge yet comes when our heroes find themselves in the most decisive battle of the East Blue Saga at Arlong Park. Nami has been kidnapped, and Zoro has been utterly defeated, from his body to his will. The fishmen hate humans and rule over Konomi Island, with the master of fishman karate being Arlong. With Arlong, we also have Hatchin. The battle is a team effort as Luffy comes to motivate everyone. Zoro is facing Hatchin, Usopp, the new recruit, takes on the fishman sniper, and Sanji is trying to find Nami to protect her after he is freed from Don Krieg. This time, in brilliance but desperation, Luffy comes up with a plan. He uses his rubber body to propel himself through the water, creating a whirlpool that disbalances Arlong. Then, by using the Chop Chop fruit, he creates even more confusion, where Arlong's strength is being pushed to the limit. Ultimately, Arlong falls as his fishman karate cannot match Luffy's speed. Suddenly, Arlong starts to laugh and then reveals that he has his own devil fruit. His devil fruit is called Sharp Sharp Teeth, and with this, he can cut through anything, be it rubber, sword, or even the most precious metals. As he comes to defeat the bloodied Luffy, he is confronted by Zoro, who uses his special sword, but with his bare teeth, Arlong breaks it, pushing Zoro back. However, Luffy has had enough and detaches using his Chop Chop fruit. Arlong doesn't know where to go, and now Luffy uses his Gomu Gomu fruit to destroy Arlong with a barrage of punches and kicks. This time, Luffy sees a sharp orb that resembles a tooth. Without second guessing, he eats the teeth, but they get stuck in his throat. By pushing in, our hero just got one of the coolest fruits in the history of One Piece. Now, the seas of the Grand Line had just become a new place for Luffy to show his new powers and ambition. With a crew that wants to take over the pirate world, Luffy goes to the kingdom of Alabasta, which is a land that is completely corrupted by evil. Nami saw the potential power of Luffy and became a tool to protect the treasure and navigate the seas. Zoro is the stoic swordsman who has one goal, becoming the best while helping his friend. And then we have all the others who have similar goals. At first, our heroes go to Whiskey Peak, which is a very unique town, but it was all a trap set by Baroque Works, which saw Luffy with a massive bounty over his head because he could steal all the devil fruits. We see Mr. Five with his bomb fruit that can turn any part of his body into an explosive. He reached Luffy and showed no ounce of mercy. Ms. Valentine also joined the battle with both of them, attacking our heroes. As soon as Mr. Five launched a series of explosive punches, Luffy detached his torso and then used Mr. Five's explosive nose to his advantage by biting him, neutralizing his power. This was easy for him because Mr. Five fell almost instantly, and then he saw an orange orb with an explosive pattern. But the battle wasn't over because Ms. Valentine was still in action. Suddenly, Luffy ate the bomb fruit, and now he easily lands an explosive punch to Valentine and the crew, neutralizing all the enemies. The Straw Hat Pirates didn't even need to do much here because Luffy alone was enough for the job. Then they go to Little Garden, where they get ambushed by Mr. 3 and his partner Miss Golden Week. Mr. 3 has the wax fruit that allows him to create and manipulate wax. His wax could even harden to the strength of steel and trap opponents. Initially, Luffy fights Miss Golden Week and is influenced by controlling him. She makes Luffy fight his own crew as Mr. 3 immobilizes them with his wax fruit. But even during his hypnosis, the power of friendship far exceeded what Golden Week could do, and Luffy came back to his senses, snapping out of her attack. Mr. 3 gets excited to fight Luffy. But as soon as he hits him with his Wax fruit, Luffy uses the Gomu fruit and sends a long punch flying towards Mr. 3's face, exploding and damaging him heavily. Mr. 3 is still ready for more action and builds a large model of wax that he throws towards Luffy. Luffy had had enough because his friends were dying, so he bites through the giant candle that is protecting Mr. 3 and then finishes him off immediately. Mr. 3 has also been killed, with a model of wax fruit coming out of his dead body. Now, Luffy can also manipulate wax along with his other devil fruits. He unwaxes his friends. But then, the final battle of this saga took place in the desert kingdom of Alabasta. Crocodile is the master of the sand fruit, which allows him to manipulate sand at will. He would prove to be quite a tricky opponent for Luffy, as he is difficult for him. At first, Luffy was a one-man army while the Straw Hats were fighting Robin and the other crew members. But as soon as Luffy fought Crocodile, he would always be countered with the sand fruit. Crocodile knew that his powers were amazing against Luffy, but what he didn't know was that Luffy had the new Wax fruit too. So by using the combination of Wax fruit and Bomb fruit, he first created a solid wax fist. Now, going towards Crocodile, he simply punches the Warlord. But this time, the attack was so fast that he didn't even get a chance to turn into sand properly. The punch landed and Crocodile fell, but Luffy showed no mercy. He put Crocodile's entire body into flames, even though he was nothing more than sand. Luffy just garnered the powerful sand fruit, and his bounty quickly doubled from what it was before. He was slowly becoming a king, a monster, and a force of nature. From creating explosions, creating wax, and now manipulating it, all on top of manipulating his body parts with the Gomu fruit, he was on his way to becoming unstoppable. But now, the Straw Hats were facing their toughest battle yet, and this was right in the sky. As they went into the clouds on Going Merry, a new world manifested, and everyone was scared. For Luffy, it was a quest to get even more power. Before they reached the clouds, they made it to Jaya, a lawless haven for pirates. Here they saw Bellamy, a rude pirate who could turn his legs into springs thanks to the spring fruit. Luffy comes across Bellamy's insults and attacks, ultimately making him angry. This time, he uses the chop fruit to divide himself, while Bellamy creates a fast spring attack to kill Luffy by stabbing him in the heart. However, all his body parts turned into sand and drowned Bellamy, killing him. Luffy, out of respect, made his death easier and consumed the spring fruit's orb. As the Straw Hats reached Skypiea, they were confronted by Enel. Zoro was already fighting Bram and Priest while the other Straw Hats were busy with their enemies. But Nami got captured by Enel, and Luffy wanted to confront him for this stupid act. Enel is a man who is merciless and has a narcissistic personality. He uses the Rumble fruit that gives him the power of lightning. But as he had our beloved Nami taken, Luffy couldn't be stupid and act recklessly. The Clash of Titans was interesting because Enel was moving at lightning-fast speed, striking down Luffy, only to find out that Luffy's body was made of rubber, which was a natural insulator. Each lightning bolt of Enel was being rendered useless. But Luffy didn't just rely on his natural immunity. He wanted to match Enel's speed. There, he tested his new spring fruit to launch himself at a fast speed that even Enel's observation haki couldn't predict. As soon as Enel tried to evade the attack, Luffy used the sand fruit to create a vortex of sand, trapping Enel and forcing him to fight head-on. Luffy then uses Bomb fruit attacks to create a series of punches, and the battle rages on. The Sky Island's sky was torn, and Enel just couldn't believe how much he was suffering during this battle. In a last desperate attempt, Enel creates a massive ball of lightning, hoping to destroy Luffy. But Luffy, with a final powerful punch, sends a shockwave through the air, destroying the lightning ball and sending Enel crashing down. Enel was quickly defeated, and the Rumble fruit emerged from his body. As soon as Luffy took the fruit and ate it, everyone saw the intense look in his eyes, with his hair turning blonde. The power of lightning was everywhere, and now he could move at the speed of lightning and manipulate it. After the Going Merry was showing its age, the Straw Hats landed on Water 7 to repair it. The atmosphere was calm, and for the first time, our heroes could breathe properly. However, a new threat came as the assassins of the world government CP9 wanted to reclaim Nico Robin and capture Luffy to instill fear in the world. Before Enies Lobby, the Straw Hat pirates came face to face with Marine Admiral Kuzan with his ice fruit. As Kuzan froze the sea around him, the Straw Hats were in utter shock as they had never faced an opponent of this power. Luffy, now with the power of a literal god, came to protect Nico Robin from the Admiral. Their battle was intense because Kuzan was using ice while Luffy had just gained the lightning energy. Kuzan, being a much more advanced fighter, kept freezing Luffy's explosions and attacks, but honestly, Luffy was not really outmatched due to his newly gained experience from fighting Enel. He used the Rumble fruit to increase his speed and fought Kuzan head-on. The battle was interesting because Luffy, with his blazing fast combination of spring fruit and Rumble fruit, went crashing towards Kuzan, kicking his face and throwing him at least 5 kilometers away from the scene. But instead of fighting Luffy, he accepted his temporary defeat and just never came back to fight him. This was more of a warning to Luffy. Now our heroes went to Enies Lobby, where they saw the members of CP9 ready to attack and reclaim their throne as the best in the world. First, Zoro and Sanji were fighting Kaku and Jabra. Zoro faced off with Kaku, a man with the Ox fruit that allowed him to transform into a giraffe hybrid. This fight was all about steel speed, where Zoro's swordsmanship pushed pushed him to the limits. On the other hand, Sanji was using his kicking style to fight against Jabra, a man with the dog fruit. In the end, Zoro was able to cut the head of Kaku and showed a glimpse of Haki, while Sanji destroyed Jabra with his blazing kicks. The initial fight of Luffy was against Bluno, a man with the door fruit. This ability created doors in the air and in his body, making him a slippery and unpredictable opponent. But Luffy had lots of experience, so he used the chop fruit to confuse Bluno and attack him. As Bluno tried to evade the attacks, Luffy used the spring fruit to launch himself at incredible speeds, which was a tactic that Bluno's door couldn't keep up with. By the end, Bluno is defeated and Luffy takes the door fruit. Now, Luffy could create doors and be as sneaky as a ninja while attacking his opponents at fast speeds. For this arc, the final battle was between Rob Lucci and Luffy. Rob Lucci is the leader of CP9 with his Neko no Mi, which allows him to transform into a leopard hybrid. Luffy was already tired of battling the tricky Bluno, so Rob was keeping up easily. He was hitting Luffy at an unmatched speed, but Luffy, with so many devil fruits, was way too overpowered to fall by the likes of the leopard. As soon as Rob tried launching himself at a fast speed towards Luffy, he noticed that Luffy's hands were on the ground, and suddenly, he grabbed Lucy from the ground, teleporting the leader to his side. But then, Luffy uses his sand fruit to trap Lucci inside a sand bubble, and from the outside, he sends the Gomu pistol attack. However, this time, each attack is a powerful explosive that annihilates Rob Lucci, killing him almost instantly. Luffy now has the power of the Cat fruit, making him one of the strongest characters with assassin-like abilities. But the Straw Hats weren't ready for what was coming next. Each of them was already so tired of fighting the CP9. But with Luffy's powers increasing drastically, the rest of the Straw Hats were still able to advance. After the overwhelming chaos of Enies Lobby, the Straw Hat pirates were exhausted yet victorious. They sailed on the new ship, the Thousand Sunny, and everything was great until the seas around them started to freeze. The only figure on the ice was the tall and lanky Kuzan, and this time, he was not here for any warning but to kill Luffy and stop the madness that he was causing. Being burnt out from the recent battle, Luffy was no match for the Admiral's overwhelming power, especially because Kuzan was so angry. Suddenly, he froze all of the Straw Hats in their places while Luffy jumped on the block of ice. This fight was a complete one-on-one showdown, with Kuzan freezing the whole battlefield. This time, Luffy would also need to be careful not to use his powers recklessly, because if he melts the ice and falls into the water, hell would break loose. Luffy uses the Rumble fruit to push himself towards Kuzan at a faster speed, but as soon as Kuzan uses his haki to counter the attack, Luffy suddenly disappears. But where exactly? Kuzan was patiently waiting for Luffy to attack, but suddenly, something came from beneath him. It was Luffy's hand that pulled Kuzan into the water by breaking the ice as Luffy jumped upwards and avoided the encounter with the sea. The door fruit proved to be the perfect counter that immobilized Kuzan. As Kuzan goes underwater and drowns, his ice fruit comes to the top of the water in the form of an orb. Luffy feels a bone-chilling surge of power that freezes a whole ocean around him. He then spends hours melting the ice that trapped his friends and the whole ocean. But one thing stuck in Luffy's mind here. As Kuzan was losing the fight, he told him that they weren't ready for what was coming next and that he should use his powers wisely. Now our heroes reach Thriller Bark, where the Thousand Sunny enters an eerie fog. The crew was suddenly on edge and was ambushed by a plethora of bizarre creatures and zombies. They were all Moria's powers. Frankie and Chopper were taking on the Frankenstein-like general, while Robin went to unravel the mystery of the island. Zoro and Sanji were fighting their way through the seas of zombies and ghostly figures. On the other hand, Luffy had his own agency. He saw that in this chaos, there was a massive source of power that was almost calling him. This castle was at the heart of the island, and along the way, he encountered Moria's top lieutenants, Absalom, a man with the clear fruit, and Perona, a woman with the hollow fruit. Absalom was a man who could turn himself and anything he touched invisible, a pretty strong ability. He also used his powers to ambush Nami and started doing perverted things with her. However, Luffy had a plan as he used the Rumble fruit to create an electric current around everything except Nami. This short-circuits Absalom's powers, making him visible. Then, Luffy used the newly acquired Cat fruit for the first time and headbutted Absalom so hard that he died. Luffy now gained the clear fruit, and now he had to fight against Perona, a woman who could create ghosts that would drain the will of anyone they passed through. Here, once again, Luffy was too big a threat for the girl, and he used the sand fruit to create a vortex of sand and trapped everyone, including the ghosts and Perona inside. By showing no mercy, Luffy set the whole vortex on fire, killing everyone. But Luffy saw that no devil fruit was coming out of Perona's body. His confusion was interrupted when Gecko Moria, who was sitting at the very top of Thriller Bark, shouted at Luffy to come face to face as he destroyed half of his army. The final battle took place, and the Shadow fruit was used by Gecko Moria to steal shadows and use them to create an army of zombies. He had stolen every shadow of every living person on the island, including Zoro, Sanji, and Robin. This fight was brutal, but Luffy, who had the power of numerous devil fruits, wasn't planning to get outmatched. He used the door fruit to sneak into Moria's massive body and started barrages of punches, but then Moria used his shadows to handle Luffy inside. As soon as thousands of shadows grabbed Luffy, he used the Chop Chop fruit to divide himself and break free. Then, Luffy used the Hollow fruit to create ghosts that drained Moria's will, weakening him. All the shadows were inside Moria's stomach. And finally, Luffy used a spring-loaded leopard fist, launching it at a fast speed while also using his explosive powers. This destroyed Moria, humiliated and defeated him along with his shadows. As he was looking for the Shadow fruit, Luffy couldn't find it anywhere. He suspected that maybe he had lost his powers and was depressed on his way back. While Luffy was already feeling depressed, he received unexpected news that his brother, Portgas D. Ace, had been captured and sentenced to public execution. The heat of war was brewing because now he must fight to free his brother. The Straw Hats swore that they would save Ace, but during their journey, they faced countless battles from bounty hunters. At one point, Mihawk came and humiliated Zoro as well. Before reaching Marineford, Luffy needed to go to the depths of Impel Down, which was the world's most secure prison. Here, the Straw Hats were fighting against the army of guards, and Luffy, by making himself invisible, went into the prison. There, his first battle was against Magellan, who wielded the Venom fruit, a Paramecia-type devil fruit that could produce a corrosive poison. Here, he used the Cat fruit to move at fast speeds and then used the Rumble fruit to create an electric shock. However, even after getting hit by such a fast-paced attack, Luffy couldn't beat him. So, he used the powerful Ice fruit in desperation to freeze the incoming poison while creating an opening to run away. Luffy was rescued by a group of revolutionaries and escaped Magellan. He thought to himself that he couldn't spend too much unnecessary energy on these fights because if he used the powers of different devil fruits, he would exhaust himself quickly. So, for the majority of the prison fight, he relied on his Gomu devil fruit, which he was well accustomed to. But then, Luffy found himself in the middle of the battle at Marineford, where the Whitebeard pirates were fighting the Marines. There was destruction all over the battlefield, where a clash of legends and powers was at its all-time display. The two Marines, Sakazuki and Kizaru, were here while Luffy was now fighting against them to protect his brother. Whitebeard was also betrayed by his crewmate, just like the original timeline, while he also gave one last speech. But now, Sakazuki was on the move and almost killed Ace until Luffy froze the whole battlefield along with Sakazuki's attack. Luffy was so angry that he pulled the legs of the Admiral using the Door fruit and dragged him to the edge of the island just to have a one-on-one battle with him. Suddenly, Kizaru also appeared, and both were fighting, where Ace was finally saved. Luffy against two admirals seems pretty brutal, right? However, by this point, our hero was capable enough to fight them. Admiral Kizaru made the first move by using his Glint fruit to manipulate light, but Luffy, with his lightning attacks, sped away and dodged both Sakazuki's Magma fruit and Kizaru's Glint attack. However, he did get cornered in the worst way possible, but as soon as they tried hitting Luffy while he was cornered on a mountain, Luffy just disappeared. They couldn't find Luffy or sense him at all. Suddenly, a door opened with at least 1,000 pirates all ready to take Kizaru and Sakazuki down, but both held their ground while fighting relentlessly. The small fry pirates were nothing against the brutal powers that they faced, but this was Luffy's plan all along. The ground beneath them turned into quicksand and was drowning them. As the quicksand was swallowing them, Sakazuki and Kizaru couldn't even use their full abilities for fear of hurting each other during the process. Now, another door appeared, and the Whitebeard pirates came to attack the admirals. Some died in the process, while pirates like Marco did some significant damage. This was hell for both admirals because they didn't even know where Luffy was. Suddenly, Luffy manifested himself as a leopard, where he launched a Gomu pistol explosive fist, killing Sakazuki the exact same way he killed Ace in the original timeline. On the other hand, Ace killed Kizaru with his fiery fist. The Marine battle ended as Sengoku and Garp were grinding their teeth. They told all the Marines to retreat and leave the battlefield because it had just become too risky for them. After a long battle, Luffy acquired the Magma fruit and was happy that he finally got the power of a fruit after a long time. But he was still confused about why there were devil fruit users who had no orbs appear from them. The Marineford saga became Luffy's biggest power boost and also became the stronghold of the pirates. But this news reached all the strongest warlords, pirates, and monsters like Big Mom and Kaido. Now, both of them were quite curious about Luffy and wanted to kill him. The Straw Hats then made it to Wano, where they found themselves in a land of oppression and poverty. Kaido had turned a proud nation into a wasteland, and all the people feared him. Luffy knew that he wouldn't be able to face a name as big as Kaido and Big Mom alone, so he went to gather some allies. Zoro found a brand new sword that was so powerful that he himself couldn't control it. The whole timeline was going as intended, and Kaido's top lieutenants were recruiting more allies since Luffy was their main target. The final battle of the saga took place on the floating island of Onigashima, which was Kaido's stronghold. This war was a spectacle of destruction, with other new generation pirates also joining the battle. As our heroes were fighting Big Mom, one huge casualty occurred, and it was Eustace Kid's death at the hands of Big Mom. Luffy's first big battle was against Big Mom, who owned the Soul fruit. This allowed her to manipulate souls, and she could even give life to inanimate objects while stealing the souls of others. The fight was the most intense anyone had ever seen. She summoned a powerful army of homies while creating sentient beings from her own soul. But Luffy also had his own powers, and by using the Magma fruit for the first time, he created a fiery punch, killing all the beings that Big Mom created while also stunning her. This was an attack that Big Mom Mom had never seen, and it made her even angrier. Luffy then used the Rumble fruit to create an electric shock, destroying Big Mom's homies and shocking her too. Big Mom, in her final desperation, created a massive fiery homie, which was her last attempt. But then Luffy combined the Ice fruit and Gomu fruit to create a giant rubber fist that he froze and then launched at considerable speed. The attack shattered Big Mom's homie and sent her to the ground, where she fell into the sea of Luffy's magma attack and drowned. She couldn't accept her fate, and this was Luffy's biggest victory to date. While Luffy was trying to eat the soul fruit, this was a power he couldn't acquire because it was tied to the soul of Big Mom, which couldn't be consumed. Kaido was awestruck seeing what had just happened and realized that Luffy was way too big a threat to be left alone. So then, he started attacking Luffy head-on. As Kaido spoke to Luffy, he said that he pitied Luffy because he was so dependent on the powers of others. Luffy was in shock, saying that he didn't know what Kaido was talking about. Kaido told him that he must be wondering why he couldn't absorb many devil fruits on his way, and Luffy suddenly remembered that he was right. Kaido told Luffy that his curse was that he could only absorb the devil fruit whose power far exceeded the fruits that he currently owned. And right now, Kaido's fish fruit was the strongest he had ever faced. But since he relied too much on other people's fruits, he would never be able to kill him, saying that Kaido transformed into Azure Dragon, a powerful, mythical, zone-type devil fruit that allowed him to transform into a massive dragon. He became a monster with a power that Luffy had not seen yet. The whole island was falling apart, and Luffy was stunned in fear. Kaido charged with his massive body, but Luffy utilized his Glint fruit to flicker in and out of existence, making him harder to hit. Then, he used the Ice fruit to create big ice spikes from the ground to impale the dragon, but Kaido easily shattered them with a swing of his hockey-infused clubs. Every single time Luffy used a devil fruit power, Kaido would neutralize him, and he would be immobilized. Now, Luffy kept getting hit by Kaido's blast breath to the point where he passed out. Suddenly, Luffy woke up, and Kaido asked him if that was all he had. Luffy, bruised and having no light in his eyes, started laughing. His single laugh sent shivers down Kaido's spine, and he quickly realized the power and entity that was about to overtake Luffy. Now, he transformed into the sun god Nika form with his original Gomu fruit power. This turned the tables, and as Luffy used Gear 5th, Kaido lunged and unleashed Blast Breath. However, Luffy, in a very relaxed manner, turned the blast into a giant rubber band, stretching it around Kaido's own neck and momentarily choking him. Luffy then expanded the Nika-infused rubber body and used the Chop fruit to detach his limbs. His hands were now as big as Onigashima itself, and they began to glow as the heat of the magma fruit was now loading into his fists. Luffy infused magma and electricity onto one hand, which grabbed Kaido's tail and twisted it, while the other hand used the clear fruit's invisibility, becoming an unseen blur of explosive force. From there, he launched 1,000 bomb-infused attacks that detonated within Kaido's scales and created so many explosions that brought him to the brink of death. Luffy took Kaido's offense in the worst way, so he then used the hollow fruit to unleash a plethora of negative ghosts that overcame Kaido's will, defeating him even further. Luffy returned to his regular form and realized that this strange power not only saved Wano, but also defeated 2 emperors of the sea. He beat himself for letting his guard down and listening to Kaido, but spared him because Kaido taught him many valuable lessons. It was almost like Luffy learned something, and that was to rely on his innate powers rather than being dependent on stealing from those he kills. The Straw Hats and other remaining pirates came to Luffy, considering him their new hero. What he didn't know was that he was being monitored by the 5 elders themselves. With the new Hito no Mi power, but having no way to control it, our heroes came to understand that the world government was now chasing them, and an entity who ruled over everyone is called Imu, or the silent ruler of the world. For the final time and to find One Piece, our heroes went to Laugh Tale, but their journey was interrupted by a fleet of marine ships that was led by the 5 elders themselves. However, they weren't just any old men, they were monsters, each with a mythical zone-type devil fruit. Basically, they were here to end the reign of the new god of pirates. The final battle took place on the open sea, where Luffy faced off against the elders one by one. At this point, Luffy was a one-man army and a force to be reckoned with. He was the only person capable of restoring the balance of the world. At first, he fought Elder Saint Jaygarsha's Saturn while the others fought their own battles. Luffy's first encounter was against the warrior god of science and defense, a man with the Ushi no Mi fruit. Basically, he could transform his body into a massive Oni-like creature with immense strength and durability. This fight was new to Luffy, because even if he had faced Kaido, he hadn't seen anyone like Saturn yet. Right off the bat, Luffy created a huge magma fist to counter Saturn's durability, and then mixed it up with the Rumble fruit to create a shockwave, stunning him. This stunned Saturn as he wasn't expecting the battle to be this difficult, but as he decided to get serious, it was already too late. Luffy was in Nika mode, and used the Chop fruit to turn Saturn's body into a giant rubber toy, which made Saturn's powers useless. Saturn was trying to hit Luffy, but his attacks were like a plush toy to him. In the final act of this battle, Luffy used the bomb fruit to launch a flurry of explosive punches that detonated on impact. Saturn was already on the ground, dead, and Luffy simply devoured the Ushi fruit. This made the other elders wary of Luffy, and Elder Marcus Mars decided to join the battle. Mars told Luffy that no matter how strong he was, he wouldn't be able to beat his overwhelming devil fruit power. He had the bird fruit. Mars turned into a bird-like creature with the power to manipulate the environment and create powerful tornadoes, summon lightning, and even control the weather. The fight was quite hard for Luffy because Mars had powerful abilities. Luffy was being hit with powerful tornadoes, which he countered by using Enel's fruit, but then he would always get hit by the water storms, slowing his speed down. Luffy was getting pinned down on every exchange, and Mars's ability was way too strong, but he had enough. Suddenly, he pulled out an orb from his pocket and told himself that this was his final hope to win the fight. This was the fish fruits orb, and as soon as he ate it, Luffy himself became a massive dragon and summoned several dragons as well. By combining the bird fruit, the size of the dragon became even bigger, and Elder Mars was attacked with dragon beam blasts from all sides, turning him to dust. The battle raged on, and now Luffy had the power to control the environment around him, which was key to defeating Imu. Now, the last warrior and elder was standing in the shadows as our heroes had already destroyed Peter, Garling, Nasturo, and Warkuri. With Imu defenseless, the crew changed their course to Mary Jawaz, the holy land of the world government, to confront their leader. When they arrived, they were met with the entity itself. Imu complimented Luffy on being able to take down 2 of the elders by himself, while the whole pirate world could barely take down a single one. But Imu started laughing because he thought it was absurd that Luffy was even thinking of challenging him. Imu said that he had no devil fruit, which surprised Luffy. The final battle took place in the heart of Mary Jawaz. Luffy and Imu were clashing, where a single wave from Imu's hand was erasing the whole island. He even summoned a massive, shadowy sphere that pierced through Luffy's summoned dragon in an instant. Luffy was ready and was considered a god, a monster, a king, but Imu was anything beyond that. Luffy used Hito Nomi, Nika, to turn Imu's attacks into rubber. By then, he used the Glint fruit to move at the speed of light, something that even Imu couldn't chase with his powerful eyes. While Luffy's main tactic was to trap Imu in the sand, that strategy failed because his shadow attack destroyed everything, even piercing through Luffy's chest. Luffy realized that the enemy he was facing wasn't anything ordinary. He relied on other devil fruits to make things work, but all of them were way too weak for him to survive. Now, Luffy got into Nika mode once again, but this time, instead of relying on most other devil fruits, he summoned a Bajrang gun. But instead of being 57 feet wide, this gun was 570 feet wide and half a kilometer tall. Imu had no way to run fast enough to avoid the attack, so he faced it head on. No matter what attack he used, he couldn't get rid of the Bajrang gun, and Luffy, in his final fury, called upon his other fist, combining the 2 Bajrang guns, ultimately crushing Imu. For the first time in centuries, the foe screamed in pain with his shadow body beginning to evaporate. Luffy had become the undisputed king of the world with his body bruised and exhausted, but his eyes were still blazing with new resolve and secrets that he acquired through Imu's memories. He defeated the gods, and now he was on his next adventure to find the One Piece treasure to be known as the king of all pirates. Make sure to subscribe and smash the like button for more One Piece videos.